Hey there, this is Chad from Zombie Fight Shark, and welcome to episode 2 of our Grain Complete Walkthrough series. We are discussing the filters and envelopes in this episode. The previous episode was all the basics. We covered all of the kind of standard stuff that you see in all the Reason synthesizers. This one will be some review if you are familiar with Europa or a lot of other synthesizers. There are a couple of things about the filter and envelopes that are different from other synthesizers in Reason, so just be aware there might be something to learn in this. So let's jump in. First, let's take a look at the filter. This is relatively simple compared to what some other Reason devices have in regards to filter. So we've got 4 different filter settings: high pass, band pass, low pass 12 dB, low pass ladder 24 dB, and their frequency resonance, velocity to envelope 2, and keyboard amount. Pretty basic stuff there. Because really grain isn't about a filter, it's about what you can do with all the cool grain stuff, which we're going to get to later, I promise. All right, so just quickly, let's just do an example of each of these, just to make sure that you're on board and understand what they do. It's really important to understand these 2 buttons, what they do, because if you're going to use the filter, then this oscillator to filter, you got to use that, because see this if you follow this path, these are bypassing, these little up and down buttons, they bypass the filter. We don't want to bypass the filter. We want to go oscillator to filter, sample to filter. Let's just check out this high pass 12 decibels. Yep, it's a high pass. And then we got resonance. Let's make it resonant. And you can watch that peak dance. And all right, so let's check out the band pass. And you can really see that band move up and down the analyzer there. It's the Melda analyzer from Melda Audio. Check them out. Everybody seems to always like this analyzer. Alright, I think it makes sense. And you notice that feedback there. You gotta watch out. When you're peaking your resonance, you're gonna get feedback. Low pass 12 dB. This should be familiar for lots of people. Anybody who has played with other synthesizers probably knows how to use a low pass. And then low pass ladder 24 dB. They have a little bit different character to them. I don't know if you can hear that. Let's switch back. Hear the ladder versus. So just a little bit different character. If you want the effect, the filter to apply more or less depending on how hard you hit the keys, that's this guy right here, your velocity to your envelope to velocity, velocity to envelope, envelope velocity. So if I don't want, doesn't matter how hard I hit it, hitting it hard, hitting it soft, versus if I want, like, okay, I hit it real soft there, the intensity is there of how much it's applying. I'll do it this way. Hitting it soft, hitting it hard. So, and then if you want a maximum amount of envelope application and maximum amount of velocity application, hitting it soft, hitting it hard, and you hear it just like it just sweeps away. And then keyboard, where on the keyboard you're at, affects the amount that the filter will apply itself. So let's see if I can, we'll turn this down. So we'll turn this all the way up. So if on the low end of the keyboard, alright, now we'll go up a couple octaves. Back down. It's also a low pass, so I'll switch it to a band pass. Up a couple octaves. And it is an automatable knob, so that's one that, you know, you can see what it does when I'm sweeping it. So something to play with, something to automate. And that's the filter, not a whole lot to it. All right, let's move over to envelopes real quick. And there are a few things that are different here from, this is almost the same thing as Europa, if you haven't noticed. But a couple things different than Europa. So first, you see you've got 4 envelopes. We got number 1 is also, it's called motion. Number 2 is filter. Number 3 and number 4 are unnamed. Okay, so that's going to come into play in a minute. We have all these presets. That's just like Europa. So, you know, if you just ain't got time to design something, who can blame you? Slow this down. And just as an example of what is it good for, we're going to route envelope 3. The destination is going to be our filter frequency. And let's just see what it does. We'll switch it to a low pass. Turn on beat sync, why don't we? And we'll do it. I think you get the idea. So that's what your presets are good for. Save yourself some time and use what's there. Now, let's say, you know, you've selected your preset and then you're like, I want to edit it. Cool. So, you know, you can see I turn this on and off, it does something, right? So it's off. I can grab this, move it around, groovy. All right, I can change the curve, you know, just kind of rip a derp a derp. All right, cool. Now, at this, all right, now, oh, looky. Now all my existing dots, I can move those around. Right, all right, so now it's no longer recognizable from what it was. Now I'm going to hold down Control and click, and oh my goodness, I got a bazillion dots here. You can draw whatever you want, you know, and there it is. So hold down Control, edit Y position needs to be on, and boom, you draw whatever envelope you want. It's awesome. And then, you know, after you've drawn your bananas envelope, you can go back in and you can edit all those little dots to your heart's content. Yeah, let's just see what it sounds like. That's kind of cool. Yeah, so, you know, I was just messing around. That was neat. Much cooler than I expected. All right, so then what do these other buttons do? Let's go to here. And filter, so this is our filter envelope. Here, we'll actually, we'll turn that off. And you see our sustain is on, and it stopped. The little arrow going across stopped right there. And then we let go, and it goes to, so attack, decay. That's our sustain level right there. We'll do it again. Watch the little arrow moving. And it's just hanging out. Then we let go, goes to the release stage. So that is your filter envelope from this filter right here that we just talked about. All right. Now if I turn the sustain off, you see it just doesn't stop there. So that's what your sustain button does. Loop. I think we know what a loop button does, but you know, let's just see for ourselves. Oh my gosh, it went back to the beginning. Who can believe it? Is it gonna do it again? Let's find out. Oh my gosh, it did it again. Okay, so that's what loop does. You know, to loop or not to loop. And you'll notice that key trigger can only be activated when loop is on. So now loop is on. We got key trigger turned on. We hit it, hold it down. Okay, it's looping, cool. All right, now I'm gonna let go and hit it again, and boom, it starts back at the beginning. Versus, I turn key trigger off, and you see it keeps moving. When I hit the note again, you probably hear me hitting the note. Key trigger on, starts back over. Key trigger off. It just keeps that pattern going. So that's what that's good for. These other knobs, this is your time knob. If you're not using beat sync, then this is going to show seconds or fractions of a second. And then beat sync, you're gonna be in time. So we got 1/64 all the way to 8 bars. If you want to make some totally sweet ambient pads that transform very slowly like that. So that's fun. We got bipolar and we got global. So bipolar. Now we'll do it off. One more time. Off. So bipolar is a little bit hard to understand, I think, unless you're looking at a diagram, but it's sweeping below zero if the middle of this is the 0 point, so that's on the 0 point, then you can, with bipolar turned on, it's like you're going negative below this line and above this line. So say that's the 0 point on frequency, even though it's not. Let's see if this sounds like we expect it to. We'll slow it down here. All right, so that's like this frequency is sweeping all the way down. Now we're going to turn bipolar off, and it's starting. That starting point is actually here, and it's not sweeping all the way down to there. So it's like it goes up, and then it's slowly sweeping back down. Then it gets the middle point, and then it. In the case of bipolar off, it stops when it sweeps back down. It goes back down to this middle point. So it's like here, and then it sweeps down to about here, and then it sweeps to here and stops. Then if bipolar is on, it sweeps all the way up. Then it comes back down to about here, and then it sweeps all the way back down. And so the starting point on bipolar is all the way down. So that's a little confusing the way I explained that. I apologize. So global, if it's on, this is quoting the reason the reason help files. If global is on, the envelope becomes common for all voices. So what does that mean? So if I play 2 notes, and the second note is not getting special treatment, so you hear the second note sweeping up, or it's starting at the same filter spot. So I switched to just a regular oscillator, so hopefully you can hear this better. It's hard to hear with that patch, but global off. It's like that. Now global on. Let the note completely die. So one more time, you can hear the it's turning the global. It's making the envelope affect all the notes equally. So hopefully you can tell, it's kind of like it puts it all under the umbrella of this one envelope. So that's the global button. And so it can drastically change the sound of the patch you're working on. So just be aware it's there and it exists. And I didn't do a good illustration of beat sync before, so I've taken envelope 4, routed it to my filter frequency with a negative number, and then turn my resonance up a little bit so you can see what it's good for. And these are what the presets are good for. Blarg. You notice I have global turned on. Now we'll turn it off. So I'll stop playing with that. The last thing I want to mention is we said this is motion right here, and you look up here, we'll cover this later in more depth, but envelope 1 motion, and so that's how your motion through your patch, through your sample, is controlled. So if you watch, see, this is the end, top there, and then this is the beginning, green to red, or green to E. Now we'll move this, we'll slow it down a little bit, and watch up here. Burp, goes back. So then these two, and it's following this, and then boom, it's going back down across here. So that's how you control this envelope. So we're going to come back to that on a future episode. That is it for envelopes and filters. Hopefully you learned something. The big takeaways on that one were right here, this motion. You're going to use it here later to control it, like we just talked about, to control your, or you can use it to control your motion amount and motion shape on your sample. And then all the other fun stuff that you can do here, and then the filter, pretty basic filter, but it gets the job done. And when you get into routing, when we talk about that later, that's where you'll see like, oh, there's a lot of power in that. So anyway, that was it, and appreciate your eyes and ears on this, and I will see you next time. Cheers.